What's up, everyone? It's Lens Addict here, and today I'm going to be doing a video showcasing ActiveTrack on the Mavic 3. And to begin, we're going to start off with a crash. So here you can see the Mavic 3 is navigating through some very dense trees, and I'm actually surprised it went in here. It was also really windy, so it wasn't the best conditions for this poor Mavic 3, which is about to crash. And you can see I was like, wow, it went into the bush, so I'll do it again. So I pretty much walked straight into the bush again. Um, Pretty excited to see the Mavic 3 doing so well the previous time, so I thought I'd give it another go. And it was doing okay actually, but on the left there's some branches that are thin, and that's the Mavic 3's downfall. And it basically just doesn't seem to notice them, and off you go. Crashed. And we'll take another look in slow motion so you can see it's doing okay, and it actually sustained flight for a reasonable amount of time. You can see it starts to hit the branch right now as the branch starts to shake, and you see it whacking the branch. It's doing okay, it's still flying, and then no, it falls and flips and ends up landing. It actually landed the right way up, but the gimbal got flipped. Luckily the DJI Mavic 3 was totally fine. The only damage was to one of the propellers, and I was able to keep flying it. And you can see here the ActiveTrack. So this is another test of ActiveTrack. So you can see on the bottom right, we got the screen recording, and you can see it's predicting where I am. So it does a pretty good job. As I go behind obstacles, you can see it kind of trying to figure out where I'm going, but doesn't do the best job sometimes. Sometimes it locks onto the wrong thing or it gets lost. So we'll be testing that out here. I'm just bringing the drone closer to see what it will do a bit closer. And I just keep walking along this pier. I test out as well, telling it to go in front of me and behind me. So here I'm telling it to go in front. So you'll see that it auto pans over. And it was a bit jerky, but it did okay. And you can see now it's in front of me where I was walking. So it did a pretty good job there. And now I'm just taking it for a little spin, trying to get it to track the ducks. But it says selected area too small, so I gave up on that. And I get to track me again. And this time I'm telling it to go in front of me. So we'll see if it can do that. I tell it to go to the left now. So you can see it's gone to the left. And it's tracking to the left. Now I'm saying go to the front. And yeah, you can see it actually does quite well, dodging those poles and going in front of me. And yeah, it's pretty good at its tracking. Now I'm telling it to go behind me. With going behind, it's a bit slower. It doesn't really want to jump behind you, so it seems to be a little slower. But yeah, eventually it'll end up behind me. But any other angle other than behind, it seems pretty quick in getting into that angle. Now I'm telling it to go front right. So we can see it's doing that. And yeah, it's pretty good at changing the angle. So this is just going to be a test of that. There is also going to be some interesting things here where it almost crashes because it thinks it can go through glass, which is quite worrying. You can see it's doing a good job still, tracking me. And this time I think I'm gonna do some faster walking or even running. And we'll see how quickly it can get in the right position. And we're gonna try from the front again, and this time we're gonna walk and confuse it by changing directions over and over. But yeah, once it determines what direction you're heading in, it's pretty quick at heading in front of you, so which is pretty nice. It also gives you messages on the screen in English or whatever language you're using, telling you about the limitations of ActiveTrack as well. So here's where I got a little bit concerned, because there was glass and it was going really close to the glass. It almost didn't seem to care. So I told it to go behind, and that was a bit better. You can see here, I try and hide behind the glass, and I'll see if I can trick it to go into more glass. But it actually starts losing track of me, and you see it gets quite jerky and erratic. It doesn't know what to do. It thinks it can go through the glass, then it thinks it can't. So it gets quite confused here. But I think it eventually figures it out and goes, I'm going to go straight through the glass. As you can see right there, it really tried. And I had to take over the controls and stop it. And I think it would have crashed. It would have just thought it could go right through that glass. So be careful with ActiveTrack and glass. If you have really clear glass, it looks that there's no obstacles to the drone and it tries to go through it. So now I land it, and we'll try some other things. So here we're going to do an even more intense test of ActiveTrack, and we're going to test it in the bush. So here we have some very thick, dense bush and some trees, that kind of stuff. And we're going to progressively go into thicker and thicker bush until the drone can't do it anymore. So this will be fun to watch. So here we go. We've set it to follow forward, but it's going to struggle because there's all these trees, but it ends up figuring it out. And we can see it ends up doing okay and figuring its way through all the trees and the branches. You can see it's doing a pretty good job. And we keep walking. Drone does really well. And for another test, there's going to be a person walking along. Oh, it almost crashes here though, see that? It doesn't do well with really thin branches, so watch out with glass and thin branches with your Mavic 3. But yeah, there's going to be another person walking, and they're going to be wearing black clothes similar to me, and I'm going to see if ActiveTrack loses me and goes to them, because that does happen sometimes. That's one of the limitations with the vision-based only tracking. So that guy over there looks a little similar to me, but thankfully the drone doesn't mistake them for me, which is nice. We're seeing here it's still navigating through the trees, doing a pretty good job. But the footage does get a little bit jerky at times. And we can see here it's doing really well. Didn't get confused by the other person. It's dodging all the tree branches, doing really well. And yeah, now I take it up a notch. So we're going to go through some thicker, denser bush, and we're going to see how the drone goes through that. I was having a great time doing this. I was really enjoying how well the drone was avoiding the obstacles. I was like, oh, this is so cool. So here, this is pretty much thicker tree, and it's a bit harder to go through, and still telling it to follow to the left, so it's really struggling to do that. It's just too many bushes. And I think it ends up losing me here. So if I had walked through the bush actually and committed, it would have found me, but I ended up having to recover it. So you'll see that it does require lock once you manually fly it back if it loses you. So we're going to try this a second time. And I was just checking if my phone was recording. So we're going to try a second time. Let's see if it can make it through this time. So it really wants to go above. The ideal way to do this would be to go under, but ends up trying. And I think it eventually does think it'll descend, but I think, no, it didn't figure it out. So this time I'm giving it some help. I've flown it down and I've put it onto me, and I'm gonna see, maybe if I give it some help, can it do it this time? So put it back on ActiveTrack, but nope, once again, it wants to go above. Oh no, maybe we got it. Yeah, so this time, figured it out. I went under and figured it out. So quite impressive. Ended up figuring out where I was and managing to lock back on and follow me. So now I'm going to start running through some even denser trees here where it's going to be not able to fly up the entire time. So here we go. You can see it dodged that branch quite well. It's got the upward sensor going off. It's all happening. And you can see the drone is kind of stuck here. It doesn't know what to do. Ideally it would go around at this point, and I think it does figure it out. And there you go. Now I'm manually flying it as close as possible so that it can follow me more closely. As I found, it generally follows better when it's really close to you, close to behind you. It doesn't seem to get stuck as much and doesn't lose you because you're just bigger in the frame. And I tempt fate by going back to the area where it crashed last time. I love tempting fate here, so let's see what happens. Oh, and it loses track. And it follows some random person on the street. We don't want that. So, yeah, that was a bit scary. I don't like it when it does this. And it does do this every now and again. And it won't even require lock, so I had to manually fix it there. So instead of crashing, I wanted to follow a random. Bit scary. Thankfully, I just pressed the pause button before it can fly too close, because you wouldn't want to do that. And yeah, we tempt fate and we go through the dense bushland with the thick trees and the branches that are small that makes the drone crash. But I always think those little ferns, if it does crash, it can hit those ferns and fall down, and it will probably be okay. It'll just mean props get replaced, so I don't mind. It makes a good YouTube video. And this is a good test of seeing how it does if you go really fast. And it actually does, it keeps up, speeds up, and it usually keeps up with you if you go fast. And if anything, I find ActiveTrack actually performs better when you go really fast. The camera results seem to be quite good. And even there, it kept the lock. But I think, yeah, it ended up figuring it out. That was quite impressive. With all that running, the drone made it through all the bushes there. Quite fun. So we keep doing it, pushing it. It seems to get stuck around here a bit. So I like to keep pushing the limits of what it can do when it gets stuck. And yeah, it works it out. Gets through all the bushes. Quite impressive. Although it doesn't do it without screaming at you that there's obstacles. You hear on the controller the whole time. Deet, deet, deet. So it's a bit stressful sometimes, hearing this constant sound of that you're going to have a crash. And I realized that I'd set the aperture to f4, so I ended up putting it down a bit because I realized I needed a bit more light. You won't really notice on the screen recording. Still doing well, still dodging the obstacles quite well. And here I tell it to go in front of me. So we'll see how well it does that. And yeah, it does pretty well. If you want a drone that can follow you autonomously, I would recommend the Mavic 3. Just make sure there's no thin branches around, because it really likes to crash onto those. Let me know in the comments if you would like me to try anything else with ActiveTrack. I can test anything really. Just let me know, and I can try it out if I think I'm not going to crash my drone. Yeah, let me know if there's any other scenarios, because I've tested like going through trees, running. Maybe I'll test cycling as well, potentially. That might be fun. And it's getting through the bush again. You can see it, all the obstacle sensors are screaming. And you can see here it actually gets stuck. So you can see it's still trying to move, but I think it's just got itself in a position where it couldn't recover. So it was still tracking, but wherever I went, you can see it's still on ActiveTrack, but it's pretty much behaving like it's on Spotlight, because it got itself stuck in a way where it just can't escape the bushes. And yeah, it's very interesting to see it like this. And when I touched the control sticks, it refused to move. So I had to put it into, had to change, I think I had to stop ActiveTrack. We'll see. I walk up to it and I'm like, what's going on? Why is it stuck? And you can see me moving the control sticks, nothing happening. So I take it out of ActiveTrack, and then it seems to allow me to move it. And it ends up getting unstuck. So there we go. It was interesting. I've never seen a Mavic drone get stuck on ActiveTrack and just not move anywhere. You can see this is also kind of dense, so it's interesting to see how it goes through here. And it almost loses me, but it keeps tracking. It almost crashed there. It was very close. But thankfully, it didn't. And it actually started hitting the branches there, although you can't see it in the recording. I had to take control because it wanted to go upwards, and it went up into the branches. So sometimes I think the limit with ActiveTrack seems to be the small branches, and when it's kind of not going fast. When it's going slow is when it seems to get stuck the most. And you can see here it lost me again, and it keeps predicting where I'm going, but I got it wrong. So I fly it back and let it get lock on me again. And I tell it to go in front of me. See how it goes with that again. And it loses me. And yeah, no recovering. So I had to fly it back manually again. This time I tried ActiveTrack, but from up high rather than down low. So I thought maybe if it's up high, we might get some interesting results, especially through the trees. How will it get lock and how will it fly? So you can see it's really trying to see me. Did a good job, it locked back on. See, it's trying to get in front again. But then it decides to go down. So this was on its own accord. I didn't tell it to do that, but just decided that I want it to go down. So it could have been because of the trees behind it or something else. But your ActiveTrack doesn't seem to always follow what you want. It kind of has a mind of its own. Sometimes if you tell it to go in front, it goes behind. And I was getting really sweaty here, so I took off my jacket. It was like middle of the day and I was doing a lot of running, so needed to cool down. Took off my jacket, and yeah, we'll keep testing out ActiveTrack. We can see going back through the bushes, seeing how it goes through a little tight gap here, but from a further distance. But yeah, it does seem less smooth when you walk, actually. I found the best ActiveTrack footage seems to be when you run. It seems to just be like quite smooth, it avoids the obstacles. It always seems to get into an accident when it's going really slow and I'm not running. And it seems to lose track more when you're not running as well. So I try and help it out here. And I put it in a sport mode so that I can try and get it past this spot because it gets stuck. Not sure why. It's still an ActiveTrack, but it just got stuck. Didn't want to move. And I took over the controls here, kind of gave it some help. You can see me manually putting it behind me, and now I'm trying out the ActiveTrack point of interest, so that's a fun one to watch. So you can see it try and circle me, and it does do it while you walk around as well, so that's quite fun to see it circle around as you walk around. And yeah, interesting footage. Be amazing if you were on the top of a mountain or something to use circle. And it lost me though, and it didn't recover. So yeah, I found sometimes with circle, it doesn't do as well. But that cool breeze was so refreshing after all that walking. So now I landed it, and we'll go on to the next ActiveTrack test. So here we have the Mavic 3, and we've got it on ActiveTrack on this boat. So we're going to see how it does with tracking a boat. It does okay. It does make a bit of a jerky camera movement. If you look carefully at this footage, you'll see it kind of, if you look at the buildings in the background, you'll see it more, but it kind of, the camera jiggles up and down sometimes. So for tracking of boats and stuff like that, I think I'll just fly it myself, because that jerky movement kind of annoys me. It doesn't make the footage look that natural, unless you want jerky footage like that. But personally, I really dislike it. But yeah, it does okay. For an automated system, it's pretty good for tracking of boats and stuff like that. And you can see that as the boat moves, it gets a bit closer and starts to follow. But yeah, the footage is just still a bit jerky. It's very good low light performance, and the sun is setting and you can see all the lights on the boat and the reflections off the water. It's very nice using the Mavic 3 in low light environments. It's just the quality of the footage is really nice to watch. And now you see a beautiful shot of the drone following along. And here I took control and I told it to go to the right, the bottom left. And yeah, now it's trying to do a circle. But yeah, you see how that footage is a bit jerky. That's what ruins it for me, and I just wouldn't use it because of the jerks that you're seeing right now on the footage. Even though the boat's moving forward, it's not rocking, nothing crazy happening on the boat. It's just Mavic 3 on ActiveTrack decides to be jerky. So here I'm using ActiveTrack in the Blue Mountains, and I'm seeing how well it can follow me. So I'm walking along, and we're going to see how well it does, tracking me and following me. You can see the drone's shadow and the propellers. And yeah, it's doing a pretty good job. And I'll be curious to see if it descends on its own, because this is downhill, this walk. And I'm hoping that the Mavic 3 will descend. And it looks like it is descending, which is great. It's very good that the drone descends as well. Definitely can ascend. I've tested it going uphill as well. You can see it losing track a bit here, but it's using its location prediction feature. So yeah, pretty impressive. I hope you all really enjoyed this video. I'm going to be making some more Mavic 3 videos on any topics that you want to see, as well as these beautiful shots that you can see right now. I'm going to be making more of that as well. I'm going to do a cinematic compilation for the Mavic 3. So please subscribe and click the notification bell and give the video a like and a comment if you'd like to see more. See you guys in the next one.